thank you all first and foremost for taking time out of your Saturday schedule to attend this book launch. It means the world to me and to my family who have, relentlessly supported me on my journey. Many of you here I know of. Many of you here I've met for the first time. Many of you here I know personally, and I do want to pay tribute first and foremost to those who taught me in high school, who have, attended today's function. I am deeply grateful for your presence, and each person who's present, who I may have known from the past, I salute you, I thank you for the contribution you have each made to my unfolding. So beloved friends, all of whom I consider to be brothers and sisters of the soul, I am deeply honored and privileged to be amongst you, as I know the esteemed presence each of you holds within. Even before this moment, even before you all attended this function, I held you all, each of you and all of you as one, in my space. And I willed for each person here a miracle in accordance with your personal needs. And for those who wanted to be here but couldn't because they had a previous engagement or have not been well enough to attend, I have also and continue to hold them in my space. And I would like to make special mention of my Aunt Bernice, who hasn't been very well, but who is here with us to support me today, and to my Aunt Joyce, Uriel, and Pearl, who couldn't be with us. I hold them in my space and also honor them greatly for the role that they have played in my life. We are actually very much supported here and in esteemed company, because the celestial light of those with whom I work, they are indeed present. And it is with absolute gratitude and unconditional love that I honor and salute the great avatars who walked before, the mighty messengers, the prophets who came before. I honor them and salute them greatly, for all of them have indeed influenced and inspired and contributed to this book in some form or fashion. I dedicated this book to the source, the creator of all that is, for it is in fact by the mandate of the creator that this book has come into being. However, there are a few celestial beings that I would like also to specifically acknowledge. I come in the light of the one radiant source. I come in the light of Michael of Nebadon, who indeed is the creator's son of our universe, Nebadon, of which planet Earth belongs. I come in the light of the one you know as Lord Jesus, who now goes by the name of Esu Sananda, Sananda meaning one with God. I come in the light of Lord Gautama Buddha. I come in the light of Lord Krishna, and I come in the light of Lord Muhammad. For all of these great messengers, prophets, and avatars have already passed through the portals of universal consciousness, where they are enlightened and where they are known to be one with the source. They continue to remain united in brotherhood to serve the will of the one. So when I say that I come in their lights, I mean I come in unity and in brotherhood, in service of the one radiant source. Mighty I am presence. Please take out of me everything less than your perfection. Sweep through my world and my activities. Reach out your hands and bless all I contact with such an outpouring of thine light and thy love that no longer is there anything left within me but your mighty perfection in action. When I had my profound spiritual awakening in May 2009, I began to attract many ascended masters who used to walk this earth plane, who came very close by to teach me. And that was one of the mantras or affirmations that I was taught by one of the ascended masters, which I used every single day of my life and continue to use until this day. Because not only did I accept through my awakening that my divine aspect, or the one we call God, the Father, the Source, the first cause, the creator of all that is, existed within me, but I became very much knowledgeable of the fact that I was holding perfection within. And therefore, if I was holding perfection within, I had to clarify my consciousness, my human consciousness. I had to have it purified so that I could actually become more aligned with the perfected being that I held within me. I know that Yvonne provided a brief history of my unfolding, but I would like to briefly touch on my awakening and the years which preceded that. In May 2009, I had a profound spiritual awakening. It was almost like an epiphany, and it was on a weekend where I decided to have a one-to-one with God, because I found that my prayers weren't being answered. Now, in the years preceding that was 9 years preceding that, I would avidly seek God's truth by engraving in my candles God's truth. Now, I really didn't appreciate during that time the motivation for me taking such action. However, it is possible that there was something within my consciousness which made me feel that everything I have learned wasn't the full truth. And I was still seeking fulfillment, but I was seeking fulfillment in a reality that was external to myself. Now, it is said that I've been taught that along the pathway of life, whatever man experiences, he will always have that insatiable desire to know the wholeness of love. And perhaps that is what I was seeking, but I was seeking that outside of myself. And for the 9 years preceding my profound awakening, I began to attract people and circumstances and events, and I began to create experiences which basically conspired to assisting me to discover the true Hazel, the true quintessential being that I always had within myself. So in May 2009, there was a weekend where I cried out to God and I asked, oh why have you forsaken me? And it was a very emotional weekend. And it was perhaps on the Sunday of that weekend that a light bulb, actually, I felt as if a light bulb was switched on inside of myself. And in the weeks that progressed subsequent to that experience, I actually began to feel a very big shift in my consciousness. What happened was that there was a wellspring that opened up within my heart, and I began to feel an overflowing of that emotion we call love. But I was brought into the awareness that that which I was seeking outside of myself was in fact within me. What I was seeking was that eternal feeling, that which we all are in essence, which is love. I began to recognize and realize that there was no need that was unfulfilled. I was not lacking in anything. In fact, I had everything I needed within me. That's the moment I began to realize that the divine within me, who was really knocking on my door for several years, finally got my attention. It was a most radiant experience. It was as if a peace descended upon me for the very first time in many years, and I truly appreciated the meaning of peace that passeth all understanding. It was in the weeks to follow that momentous experience that I began to feel presence moving all around me. Now, after that profound spiritual awakening, I became fully open to the world of spirit, and I began to consider cosmic and eternal realities. Because in the years preceding that profound awakening, spirit had already begun to introduce themselves to me in various ways, but I didn't have any of the higher abilities that I have today. So there were others who were telling me about bringing messages to me from spirit, but more so I began to have personal experiences through dream state where I was having very vivid dreams and very prophetic dreams, and I realized that my higher self and the celestial guides who worked with me were communicating with me in that form and fashion. In the weeks that followed subsequently to my awakening, I was led to an organization called Abundant Hope, and I began to read on that website, and I began to experience an expansion of my consciousness and in my thought patterns, and I realized that a lot of the news that are carried in the mainstream media don't always give us the full information or the full truth. And there are, in fact, alternative streams that are present or available for us to research to basically find out the truth of whatever we might decide to, or we have an interest in. But more importantly, I was led to resources and people who struck a chord within me. There was a resonance with these resources, and I began to study prolifically many of the texts. They were not religious texts, they were texts that were bestowed to humanity by the celestial hierarchy in one form or another. And I remember saying to myself that I felt within me as though I had taught what I was reading in a different dimension. I avidly began to meditate. I used to pray before, but my practice became one of meditation now, where I learned to still my mind and separate my body awareness, or the awareness of having or being a body, so that I could reach up to higher levels of hearing and consciousness. And it was through that experience that I began very gradually to hear the inner voice speak. But before I jump too far ahead, I just wanted to share with you that during that time when I began to feel presence all around me, it was like feathery touches or simply an energetic presence moving around my body. I didn't quite understand it, but I knew that the angelic kingdom of light and the spiritual guides were coming closer and closer to me. And on the eve of my birthday in 2009, I put my hands out like this, and Archangel Michael came from behind and whoosh, in a beautiful violet pink light, and that began my love affair with the angelic kingdom of light. That day, I was initiated Every day since that day, they have come to me in different ways, and they were very patient with me as I continued with my interest in spirituality, etc. And eventually, it would have been late 2009 that I decided to engage in what is called automatic writing. If any one of you here have ever read the book Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch, that is how he received that book, through automatic writing. And in fact, it was Lord Buddha who wrote that book with him. So we have many, many people today who are having conversations with God in different ways and recording those conversations. It was during one of those exercises where the pen was taken over and Archangel Michael introduced himself and said, "You are being prepared for a task for God. You are under my divine protection." And it was about a month later on when I realized that I was gifted with telepathic abilities, or in fact, those abilities began to unfold at a dramatic rate. So whatever they were doing to prepare me, they were doing it very silently, but I would then receive a lot of buzzing on my head, which meant that there was someone in the higher realms of light who wanted to connect with me for the purpose of taking down messages. My higher self, and I will explain to you what higher self means for those of you who may not have encountered that terminology before. This body and self is what we call the third dimensional self, which comprises the physical, mental, and emotional bodies. We are currently living in the third dimension. Dimension simply is a vibrational quality. However, we are all meant to return to our source through the process of evolution. And our fourth to sixth dimensional self, fourth, fifth, and sixth, represents our soul identity, where our higher self is stationed. So when I refer to my higher self, I'm referring to my fourth, well, it's really fourth to 15th dimensional self, but for the purposes of our evolution here, I refer to my higher self as my fourth to sixth dimensional self. So I would go to bed at night, and this voice would start to speak from mind to mind, so telepathic communication, where I was asked to take a message, and all of these messages were wisdom teachings and higher intelligence from the higher dimensions of light. And I could tell you I did not write them myself, because I wasn't capable of I would say I wasn't capable in myself of creating such wisdom. So they were telepathic communications from the higher realms of light, which included my higher self. So as 2010 progressed, I brought through many telepathic messages from many celestial beings of light. It was simply part of my task for God. And in late 2010, I was asked to create a website, which is called The Path to Freedom is Truth, to share those messages, because one of the conditions of me receiving those messages was that I would give all that was given to me to humanity, or at least to those who were open to receive the wisdom teachings. And I was taught then and there that one of the primary laws of creation is the law of balance, being equal, giving for equal re-giving. And therefore, were I to share and re-give to humanity all that I was given, the flow would be continuous. And it has been, because I have channeled and I have brought through messages prolifically since January, February 2010. And I was given the mission, the path to freedom is truth, where I was told by the source that the messages were meant to educate the minds of the readers for the purposes of emancipating the spirit within, so that each person would be inspired to take the journey towards enlightenment. So it was educate, emancipate, and enlighten. So I was called to the altar of humility, where I kneeled to be knighted by the golden sword. Prepared I was to take the mantle on, to walk in humble tones throughout my life, to serve the greater will, yet knowing through the I am of myself, which is the God presence of myself, in the reverie of its silence, through the lineage of my birth, I am exalted. So I was able, through the transformation that took place, through the receiving of these messages, I was able to recognize that even though my feet may walk on terrestrial grounds, I could keep my mind on the celestial highway of life, where there is no traffic of ego to impede my spiritual unfolding. And that is exactly what I strive to do during those years, because I recognized that I held within me the prototype of perfection, being the source of all. I knew that I was exalted, and therefore I could have afforded to be humble. And that has been my journey for these last 5 years, where I have wholeheartedly accepted the mission that has been given to me, and I will not deviate from the light or from my soul's purpose for being on this earth plane. I have grown to be through the unification that I have experienced through my meditations with the one within me. I have extreme loyalty towards the source. So when I say to you, I come in the light of the one radiant source, I come in divine integrity and with divine authority to fulfill the mandate of the source, and in so doing, to fulfill my soul's mission. And the importance or significance of the organization called Abundant Hope in my life was that the CEO of Abundant Hope spotted my work and began to post my telepathic messages on the front site. And I think Abundant Hope has a wide readership internationally of more than between 5,000 to 8,000 readers. And a lot of people began to email me directly showing interest in my work. And when I put together my website, The Path to Freedom is Truth, I was receiving emails from every continent. So I have those who have benefited from my work throughout this world, and I have traveled extensively in the 15 months that I have left the legal profession to basically teach to others what have been given to me. I had many metaphysical experiences after my profound awakening. A metaphysical experience is one that has a physical basis, but there is no physical explanation for it. So I have had angels manifest before me. I have had higher beings of light come to me. I have seen what the angels look like, and I can tell you they do not have wings. Okay? That's simply a reflection of their beautiful aura. I once asked Archangel Michael, or Michael, will you show yourself to me? He says, why do you need to see me, know me of the one mind? In other words, all of us are one. We are all of the one mind. We simply need to come into awareness of that reality. And because for many years I fervently sought the truth, and until today there is not a day that goes by that I do not seek the highest truth of all that I need to know for the purposes of fulfilling my soul's mission on this earth plane. I am now wired for truth, because the highest source which each of us holds within us is truth. And we are all wired for truth. We simply need to seek that truth fervently. I always speak about the 4 Ds: desire, determination, dedication, and discipline. I had a great desire for the truth and a determination that I was going to have the truth. I was going to receive that truth. And I was very dedicated in my seeking of the truth and very disciplined in my meditations. And that is why today, 5 years on from my profound awakening, I have experienced so much at so many different dimensional levels. I began to feel that nudge to take up the mantle of service, and this was around November 2011. But obviously, you know, the law was all that I really knew. I was a lawyer for 18 years, and for the latter part of the journey, I was a law lecturer. I trained qualified lawyers as part of their continuing professional development, and I actually trained them to be advocates, competent advocates before the High Court judges in London. And I thought to myself, well, you know what, maybe I can bargain with the angels. Maybe I can say to them, well, if you bring money for me in advance, then sure, of course I will leave the legal profession and dedicate my life fully to service. But we all know it wasn't going to happen like that. It was a test of great faith on my part and my commitment to service that was in question here. And I remember going through very agonizing months where I had many, many meditations where I connected with the source from within. And one of the messages that came through was, he said to me, "You are in a comfort zone. Have I not for all these years been anchoring you? Have you not had invisible hands guiding you and looking after your needs? So why do you feel if you step onto uncharted territory that it will be any different? Isn't the harbor and port of call the same?" He says, if you do not release that which is not serving you or that which is not in your highest and best interest, how can I give to you that which will? And on the second occasion, the Christ came through in a meditation. And I was given this beautiful gift of a horse, which was a chestnut horse, and I was placed on top of this horse. And he asked me to call that horse Faith. And it was that vision and that message that gave me the courage to hand in my notice. And 2 weeks after that, a lump sum of money came to me to give me the comfort that I would not be without. And ever since then, the Angelic Kingdom of Light and the Source and those with whom I work very closely have looked after my needs. But as you know, faith is something that we have to grow. It doesn't come overnight, and it is through our personal human experience that we grow our faith, and in so doing, we begin to connect at a much deeper level with the divine essence which is within us. Faith does not exist outside of ourselves. No matter what we read about faith, we have to internalize it. It has to become part of our energetic experience. And I had to learn that. And I could say without a doubt, hand on heart, that last year, September, I recognized and realized energetically and mentally and spiritually what it meant to have absolute faith in the divine. I remember coming back, returning from Malaysia, where I went to run 4 workshops, And I was very tired, but I had a goal for myself that I wanted to earn this amount of money every month to cover my expenses, etc. And I had a few disappointments because some of the people who had booked for the workshops had pulled out prematurely. I wasn't too pleased about that. Nevertheless, I went up to the source. Now, the reason why I did this was because from the moment I recognized that unity consciousness, my oneness with the source from within, I began to experience that feeling of pure inner harmony and equilibrium and equanimity. And when that becomes part of your daily experience, anything that seeks to threaten that equilibrium will come to your attention at once. So the moment I began to feel a bit uncomfortable with my thoughts, I went into meditation to connect with the source for the purposes of receiving divine wisdom and intelligence that would assist me in navigating through this quandary that I had. And the first thing the source said to me was that, let not that which faces you on the outside world defeat your faith. Faith finds its strength in the receptacle of promise, the promise of fulfillment. I lend you my grace that you might walk your faith to the promise. And he reminded me, he said, my child, how much have I given to you? You know so much. I have taught you so much. He says, mind is the most powerful gift that I gave to man. It is the non-physical construct derived from the cosmic gene. He says, but you are to translate your mind knowing into your energetic experience. So how many of us say, well, we know this, we know that, but we don't feel it? So he was giving me a lesson, well, pretty much reminding me of what I knew already, but wasn't putting into practice. And he said that allow your feeling body to move with the tide of your knowing and be risen by the mood of bliss, which is the truth of mind. Because the consciousness of the divine is all mind. And that consciousness is always in equilibrium, always in bliss. And it wasn't so much the words that were said to me that changed me or activated my consciousness, but it was the vibration that came with that transmission that transformed me in that instant. And from that moment on, I was totally free because I knew whatever I needed, whatever I desired, as long as it was congruent with the will of the divine within myself, I would receive it. And that has been my experience. And the weekend after, the source said to me, my child, how often have you said to me, Father, Mother, God, I give you my life so that you might use it as you please. And he said to me, well, I have given you my life, which is within you, so that you might make it your own. And that brought floods of tears to me, because to receive such a transmission from the source, it was, I cannot express to you how I felt. I recognized that as long as I was faithful to the divine within myself, the divine within me will always be faithful to me. But one of the lessons that I have learned as a result of this unification and consciousness is that when you feel the presence of the divine working through you and living through you, and that expression begins to basically direct the course of your life, and you become so at one with that inner light and life force that you cannot help but make every decision in alignment with that source, you will never ever dishonor yourself. You will never ever dishonor the divine within you. You will never make any decisions that will sabotage your own personal and spiritual unfolding. One of the most beautiful experiences that I had through the knowing and feeling of the source within, so much so that daily I walk in the divine rhythm and with the divine rhythm, is the frequency of unconditional love that is now my inner compass. Every single human being, every single life force in God's creation, I have recognized my oneness with. I honor every single life force. I would find myself traveling on the underground and looking at the person or people sitting opposite myself, and I would marvel and say, oh my goodness, how beautiful and wonderful that child of God is, carrying the identical God presence that I have within myself. And I would honor that person. It mattered not that I did not know who that person was in this live stream or expression. The words tolerance, the values of tolerance, brotherhood, compassion, unconditional love took on a whole new vibration for me. I could not tolerate actually being in the company of those who constantly criticized others or who found fault with others, because I felt such a sense of oneness with everyone. And each one of you here is so unique and so precious. And I can see that because the presence of the divine, by whatever name you choose to call that divine, rests within you. And my mandate is to inspire others to take inward steps through desire, intent, and action, to discover the God within themselves and to cultivate a relationship of spiritual intimacy, so that first and foremost, all will begin to understand their relationship with the divine, and secondly, your higher purpose or divine purpose for being on this earth plane. And the thrust of the messages, it isn't meant to convert anyone to the perspectives that have been given to me. Obviously, I would like people to attend the messages with an open mind. However, I am nobody's guru. One of the prime messages in my book is that you are your own guru and master, because if I am to see each of you as a sovereign being, and we are all sovereign beings by virtue of the fact that we have come from that creator, who some of us will call King of Kings and Lord of Lords, well, how can we have come from a consciousness that is entirely foreign to our own? We have drawn our being, the entirety of our being, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of self, from that consciousness. And therefore, we simply need to change our perception of self and begin to realize that it is time to emerge from the lethargy of traditional thinking and static thinking, and to espouse higher paradigms and views, and to come into the notion that it is through our human experience that we will find the God within ourselves and the God of ourselves. It is by no means an overnight journey. Illumination doesn't happen overnight. But my personal human experience is that in 5 years, after having that profound spiritual awakening through perseverance, through effort, through determination, through desire to know the source of my being, to truly experience the oneness with my source, I was able to unfold so many higher spiritual senses. Now, we know of these 5 senses, don't we? Those are the 3D senses, but we really have 12 senses. We have 7 higher senses, and I have been able to develop 5 other higher senses, which Yvonne mentioned to you, is telepathy, which is a form of clairaudience, where I settle down in meditation and I can commune with the mind of another celestial being, many of whom have brought messages through me in this book, that's recorded in this book. And one of the first things that I was taught when I began to connect with the divine is that there are no limitations. There are only infinite possibilities. And I began to espouse that view. And I remember there was a lady who was very much more advanced than I was at the time, who said to me that I wasn't connecting with God, I was connecting with my higher self. And I said to myself, well, I will show you that I am connecting with God. And I invested quite a lot of time, effort, and energy, and love. And I can say, you know, with integrity today that my life has been transformed. I have been taught that man is spirit turned inside out. And we should not be afraid to wear the face of our soul, which holds the perfected nature of God on our world. I had an interview with Vernon Rameser a few days ago, and the program was aired last night, and I asked him the question. He was supposed to interview me, but I asked him the question, do you think we live in a God-conscious world? And I said to him, God consciousness has nothing to do with one accepting that God exists, so the Creator exists. It is not merely an intellectual exercise. Of course, to know God, we must know how God created the universe, how God used light and energy and gravitation to create bodies to manifest his purposes. And that is more of a theoretical exercise. But we must know the spiritual God in order to experience the oneness with that God and the oneness with our brothers and sisters of the soul. And I said to him that if we had enough people who were God conscious, the state of our external reality would be quite different. So we have pockets of godly people and God conscious people. There is no doubt about that. But people do not realize that every thought that you have, every belief that you espouse is encoded in your DNA, and it is projected to reflect your reality. So if you are happy with your outer world, then know that you are doing something right. When I say your outer world, I mean your personal outer world. But from a collective point of view, from the collective consciousness point of view, we do not live in a God-conscious world, not in the way that we are meant to. And what has birthed that is the illusion of separation from our source. I learned through my personal human experience that illusion of separation, it is a myth. And I'm going to illustrate to you very simply using an analogy how it is we cannot be separated from our source. Now, think about the sunlight, the sun that is outside, and there are many rays that are emanating from that sun. And let us say that you're in a building such as this building, and let us say also that there is glass at the top of the building that is painted, so you have painted glass. Let's say you have 10 different rays emanating from the actual sun. And when it emanated, as it emanates from that sun, the rays are pure, isn't it? It is very pure. But as it touches the filter or moves through the filter of the painted glass and comes down to the floor, you might see those circles of light in different colors. You might see in green, blue, yellow, orange, as the case might be. That represents, it is a good way of, it's a good analogy to use in relation to the human experience. Let us say that that sun was our source, the creator of all that is, and we are individuations of that source coming down through those rays. And we were pure when we began to emanate from those rays, but the moment we hit the filters and we became, the laboratory of our consciousness became pumped up with all manner of different things, including our genetics, our parentage, our environment, our upbringing, our resources, the opportunities, our race, religious beliefs. All those additives began to confuse our essence, or our awareness of our essence. And what happens is that we find ourselves as distinct beings with different color, different races, different religious beliefs. But what is to happen if we were to recognize that at the grassroots of our being, we are simply spirit? We are simply that pure ray that originally emanated from the source. And when those lights do not exist anymore, they have gone through the filter. There is no filter anymore, and has gone back to its source, to its pure form. So what we have to appreciate on this earth plane is that we are here for a short period of time. And the soul chooses its experiences based on the lessons it needs to learn for the purposes of its evolution, so that it is able to spiral back up to source through the evolutionary process. And we are, yes, in a way, take this incarnation seriously, but in a way don't take it so seriously. Because we are one at the end of the day. We appear to be separate, and we do have separation for the purposes of function, but we are one people. And it is time to reject the differences spawned by race and religion and any other paradigms that we have been taught, and come as one single unit and people under one divine consciousness. Because the reality is that the earth is changing. We are in the midst of an ascension cycle, and some of you may be familiar with that. And what that means is that the vibration of the earth is changing. What is happening is that every 26,556 years, the stargates or chakras, the magnetic chakras of the earth, begin to open up, and we begin to receive an influx of interdimensional energies, which is really the wave from the universe. And that begins to speed up the particle pulsation rate of the Earth's auric field, which affects our auric field, because we are within the womb of the mother that we call Earth, isn't it so? And that is why so many people now are feeling that pull towards a higher purpose. They are asking questions. They are feeling the pull towards service. And we will continue on this cycle until 2017, and anything can happen between now and then. But it is a beautiful period for us to be on this earth plane. And I remember being taught that the journey of life should be seen as a faith adventure on the high seas of unexplored truth. So we are not to fear truth, no matter how much it might shake up our current consciousness in terms of what we have been taught, or what we have come to accept is truth. We have to truly be open-minded and allow ourselves to be guided onto that path of truth. And my personal experience is, if you ask long enough and hard enough as I did, I'm just kidding, I'm pretty sure you will get the answer. I think I put myself through an unnecessary arduous journey to get to where I am now, because it did span about 10 to 12 years. So, on that note, let me just check to see whether there's anything else I would like to say here. When you begin to know that you are one with the divine, and all your preconceptions of self and the divine has truly been resolved, and you accept that you are whole, you are perfect, you are already complete, it will be easier now to align your consciousness with that pure consciousness. Every one of you here has the ability to experience what I have, and even more so. And I truly invite each of you, whether you read the book or not, to make the choice to be free, because that is one of the greatest benefits I reaped when I came into the knowing and feeling of my oneness with the divine. Make the choice to be free and allow the inner complex of spirit to rescue you from the bouts of human indifference, that your ordinary lives may become fulfilled and you may become dynamically postured. Your lives may become dynamically postured by the God within. This morning, as I was signing a book for someone, the God within basically wrote this message: the life of the soul is the truth of all existence. When that life is discovered and lived, you become the truth. We need to build godly people who have such a basic and innate sense of nobility that it will be difficult for them to be anything but noble. And it is only through the knowing and feeling of the God within that you will truly find your quintessential essence and your nobility. Be fearless. Be fearless, my brothers and sisters, because when you know God from within, you only know love. There cannot exist fear when there is love. Fear is false evidence appearing real. It is the matrix, the collective, that wishes to keep humanity dumbed down into their true essence that is projecting this fear. There is no reason to be afraid when you know that you are anchored and you are housing that omnipotent, eternal light within you, which is who you are in your very essence. Do not be afraid of criticism. Do not be afraid to espouse your inalienable divine right to live in accordance with your highest conception of the divine which you house within you. Because truth does not resent honest criticism. And anyone who will get angry with you or dismiss you because you espouse a belief or a paradigm that may be different to their own, well, then they are masking doubts as to the belief in what they say is truth. So on that note, I will simply say to each of you, once again, thank you for being a part of this book launch. Thank you for being here. I know that each of you has been led here by the intelligence of your soul. And I have the gift of clairvoyance, and even now I can see that there are so many pillars of light around this room. There's so much angelic presence and divine presence in this room. Even the ones that you might think are far away are present here. Some of the prophets are present here, even so at this moment in time. And I find great joy and fulfillment in working with them and allowing the God within me to work with me and through me to help to raise the consciousness of humanity during these times. And remember, a life without truth is an imperiled life. So on that note, accept my love and my gratitude. And I want you to know that I perceive each of you as a reflection of me. I see you in the light of the divine. I love you because you host within you the most beautiful, radiant energy that exists, that only exists. I salute you and I bow to you as I say, blessed be in love and purest light. I am that I am. I come in the light of the one radiant source. I thank you all, and if you have any questions, I open the floor.